Welcome back to another episode of Lizzy Co and the Artist's Way, featuring The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Um, this last week, I was looking at week 2, which is titled Recovering a Sense of Identity. And I gotta say, I really struggled with this week's work. I really did. Um, so let's start with the weekly check in, and then we'll take it from there. First item in the check in: how many days a week did you do your morning pages? This week, I think I did 4 or 5. I forgot to check. But what I did notice is on the days when I did the morning pages, I am starting to see some deeper things come out. Some sort of therapy level stuff is starting to rise to the surface that I didn't realize I was holding on to. And on the days when I find myself not doing the morning pages, it's usually because I'm not sure I'm ready to face something like that first thing in the morning. So that's an interesting thing to notice. Um, so I'm thinking maybe the solution there is to create some sort of sense of safety before I do the morning pages, just in case stuff like that comes up in the future. Second check-in item: did you do your artist date this week? I can't believe this. I just didn't do it this week. I got really caught up in everyday work life like everybody does. And I just never made it happen. I did artistic things, that's for sure. I've been enjoying some oil pastels as a pastime, but I can't say that I created that specific container of space this week. So it's a good thing to note. I'll have to make sure that I do that this coming week. And check-in item number 3: were there any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? I will say that, I have some dynamic disabilities that vary in intensity throughout the month, and I am coming into a time where I find myself a little bit reduced in capacity. So I'm going to go ahead and forgive myself for not getting everything done that I wanted to get done in the artist's way this week, because after all, it's supposed to be something that improves our lives. So all that being said, let's dive right into week 3 and read through that and editorialize wildly, as is our custom. So here we go. Week 3 is titled Recovering a Sense of Power. Anger. Anger is fuel. We feel it and we want to do something. Hit someone, break something, throw a fit, smash a fist into the wall, tell those bastards. But we are nice people, and what we do with our anger is stuff it, deny it, bury it, block it, hide it, lie about it, medicate it, muffle it, ignore it. We do everything but listen to it. Yeah, I feel pretty called out that we're immediately diving into anger, because I did feel a lot of anger and resentment rising up this week as I did some of the exercises. Just looking back to give you an example specifically. This past week, week 2, talked a lot about crazy makers, and that came up a lot in my daily morning pages. I will say it was really hard to think about anything other than all of the crazy makers that I had forgiven and been patient with and moved past and been limited by. And I found myself feeling a lot of anger. So I think it's really interesting that this is coming up now. Moving on. Anger is meant to be listened to. Anger is a voice, a shout, a plea, a demand. Anger is meant to be respected. Why? Because anger is a map. Anger shows us what our boundaries are. Anger shows us where we want to go. It lets us see where we've been and lets us know when we haven't liked it. Just like I was saying, interesting. Anger points the way, not just the finger. In the recovery of a blocked artist, anger is a sign of health. Anger is meant to be acted upon. It is not meant to be acted out. Anger points the direction. We are meant to use anger as fuel to take the actions we need to move where our anger points us. With a little thought, we can usually translate the message that our anger is sending us. Blast him! I could make a better film than that, this anger says. You want to make movies. You need to learn how. I can't believe it. I had this idea for a play 3 years ago and she's gone and written it. This anger says, stop procrastinating. Ideas don't get opening nights. Finished plays do. Start writing. That's my strategy he's using. This is incredible. I've been ripped off. I knew I should have pulled that material together and copyrighted it. This anger says, it's time to take your own ideas seriously enough to treat them well. Yeah, I think I have been guilty of this a lot in the past, of feeling afraid to take that leap and then feeling desperately envious when somebody else took that leap instead and found success. When we feel anger, we are often very angry that we feel angry. Damn anger. It tells us we can't get away with our old life any longer. It tells us that old life is dying. It tells us we are being reborn and birthing hurts. The hurt makes us angry. Anger is the firestorm that signals the death of our old life. Anger is the fuel that propels us into our new one. Anger is a tool, not a master. Anger is meant to be tapped into and drawn upon. Used properly, anger is useful. Sloth, apathy, and despair are the enemy. Anger is not. Anger is our friend. Not a nice friend, not a gentle friend, but a very, very loyal friend. It will always tell us when we have been betrayed. It will always tell us when we have betrayed ourselves. It will always tell us that it is time to act in our own best interests. Anger is not the action itself, it is action's invitation. Synchronicity. Answered prayers are scary. They imply responsibility. You asked for it. Now that you've got it, what are you going to do? Why else the cautionary phrase, watch out for what you pray for, you just might get it. Answered prayers deliver us back to our own hand. This is not comfortable. We find it easier to accept them as examples of synchronicity. A woman admits to a buried dream of acting. At dinner the next night, she sits beside a man who teaches beginning actors. A writer acknowledges a dream to go to film school. A single exploratory phone call puts him in touch with a professor who knows and admires his work and promises him that the last available slot is now his. A woman is thinking about going back to school and opens her mail to find a letter requesting her application from the very school she was thinking about going to. A woman wonders how to rent a rare film she has never seen. She finds it at her neighborhood bookstore 2 days later. A businessman who has secretly written for years vows to himself to ask a professional writer for a prognosis on his talent. The next night, over a pool table, he meets a writer who becomes his mentor and then collaborator on several successful books. It's my experience that we're much more afraid that there might be a God than we are that there might not be. Incidents like those above happen to us, and yet we dismiss them as sheer coincidence. People talk about how dreadful it would be if there were no God. I think such talk is hooey. Most of us are a lot more comfortable feeling we're not being watched too closely. If God, by which I do not necessarily mean a single-pointed Christian concept, but an all-powerful and all-knowing force, does not exist, well then, we're all off the hook, aren't we? There's no divine retribution, no divine consolation. And if the whole experience stinks, oh well, what did you expect? The question of expectations interests me. If there is no God, or if that God is disinterested in our puny little affairs, then everything can roll along as always, and we can feel quite justified in declaring certain things impossible, other things unfair. If God, or the lack of God, is responsible for the state of the world, then we can easily wax cynical and resign ourselves to apathy. What's the use? Why try changing anything? This is the use. If there is a responsive, creative force that does hear us and act on our behalf, then we may really be able to do some things. The jig, in short, is up. God knows that the sky is the limit. Anyone honest will tell you that possibility is far more frightening than impossibility, that freedom is far more terrifying than any prison. If we do, in fact, have to deal with a force beyond ourselves that involves itself in our lives, then we may have to move into action on those previously impossible dreams. This is kind of what it felt for me when I was being encouraged to go to college after high school. I grew up in a time right when student loans were still seen as a gift and not a burden. They were seen as an opportunity, and we didn't quite yet understand how predatory they were. So it kind of felt like the sky was the limit in terms of where I could go and what I could do, because I was like, oh, there will just be loans to pay for it all. So, and that openness of the world was really intimidating as a young person, and I ended up burying my head in the sand a little bit because I just couldn't handle how many opportunities I had before me, and I didn't really have the support to parse through all of those opportunities instead of being overwhelmed by them. Continuing on. Life is what we make of it. Whether we conceive of an inner God force or an outer other God doesn't matter. Relying on that force does. Ask and you shall receive. Knock and it shall be opened to you. These words are among the more unpleasant ones ascribed to Jesus Christ. They suggest the possibility of scientific method, ask, and see what happens, record the results. Is it any wonder we discount answered prayers? We call it coincidence. We call it luck. We call it anything but what it is, the hand of God, or good, activated by our own hand when we act in behalf of our truest dreams, when we commit to our own soul. Even the most timid life contains such moments of commitment. I will get a new love seat after all. And then I found the perfect one. It was the strangest thing. I was at my Aunt Bernice's, and her neighbor was having a garage sale, and she had this wonderful love seat her new husband was allergic to. In outsized lives, such moments stand out in relief, large as Mount Rushmore. Lewis and Clark headed west. Isak Dinesen took off for Africa. We all have our Africas, those dark and romantic notions that call to our deepest selves. When we answer that call, when we commit to it, we set in motion the principle that C.G. Jung dubbed synchronicity, loosely defined as a fortuitous intermeshing of events. Back in the 60s, we called it serendipity. Whatever you choose to call it, once you begin your creative recovery, you may be startled to find it cropping up everywhere. Don't be surprised if you try to discount it. It can be a very threatening concept. Although Jung's paper on synchronicity was a cornerstone of his thought, even many Jungians prefer to believe it was a sort of side issue. They dismiss it, like his interest in the I Ching, as an oddity, nothing to take too seriously. Jung might differ with them. Following his own inner leadings brought him to experience and describe a phenomenon that some of us prefer to ignore, the possibility of an intelligent and responsive universe acting and reacting in our interests. It is my experience that this is the case. I have learned as a rule of thumb never to ask whether you can do something. Say instead that you are doing it. Then fasten your seatbelt. The most remarkable things follow. God is efficient, the actress Juliana McCarthy always reminds me. I have many times marveled at the sleight of hand with which the universe delivers its treats. About 6 years ago, a play of mine was chosen for a large staged reading at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. I had written the play with my friend Juliana in mind for the lead. She was my ideal casting, but when I arrived in Denver, the casting was already set. As soon as I met my leading lady, I had a funny feeling there was a bomb ticking. I mentioned this to the director, but was assured the actress was a consummate professional. Still, the funny feeling lingered in my stomach. Sure enough, a week before we were set to open, our leading lady abruptly resigned from my play and from Painting Churches, the play that was in mid-run. The Denver Center was stunned and very apologetic. They felt terrible about the damage my play would sustain by the abrupt departure. In a perfect world, who would you cast? They asked me. I told them Juliana McCarthy. Juliana was hired and flown in from Los Angeles. No sooner did the center's directors lay eyes on her work than they asked her not only to do my play, but also to take over the run of painting churches, for which she was brilliantly cast. God is showing off, I laughed to Juliana, very happy that she had the chance to do her play after all. In my experience, the universe falls in with worthy plans, and most especially with festive and expansive ones. I have seldom conceived a delicious plan without being given the means to accomplish it. Understand that the what must come before the how. First, choose what you would do. The how usually falls into place of itself. This reminds me a lot of how I manage my young staff at work. A lot of them will say, can I do this? And I'm just like, well, I don't know. Can you? You're an adult. And a lot of them are getting that permission for the first time, I'm realizing. A lot of them are coming from environments where they are forced to ask permission more often than not, and they aren't always treated like adults. So, yeah, getting to blow their minds in that way is really fun. All too often, when people talk about creative work, they emphasize strategy. Neophytes are advised of the Machiavellian devices they must employ to break into the field. I think this is a lot of rubbish. If you ask an artist how he got where he is, he will not describe breaking in, but instead will talk of a series of lucky breaks. 1,000 unseen helping hands, Joseph Campbell calls these breaks. I call them synchronicity. It is my contention that you can count on them. Remember that creativity is a tribal experience, and that tribal elders will initiate the gifted youngsters who cross their path. This may sound like wishful thinking, but it is not. Sometimes an older artist will be moved to help out, even against his or her own wishes. I don't know why I'm doing this for you, but again, I would say that some of the helping hands may be something more than human. We like to pretend it is hard to follow our heart's dreams. The truth is, it is difficult to avoid walking through the many doors that will open. Turn aside your dream and it will come back to you again. Get willing to follow it again, and a second mysterious door will swing open. The universe is prodigal in its support. We are miserly in what we accept. All gift horses are looked in the mouth and usually returned to sender. We say we are scared by failure, but what frightens us more is the possibility of success. Take a small step in the direction of a dream and watch the synchronous doors flying open. Seeing, after all, is believing. And if you see the results of your experiments, you will not need to believe me. Remember the maxim, leap and the net will appear. In his book, The Scottish Himalayan Expedition, W.H. Murray tells us his explorer's experience. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then the providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would otherwise never have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man would have believed would have come his way. If you do not trust Murray or me, you might want to trust Goethe. Statesman, scholar, artist, man of the world. Goethe had this to say on the will of Providence assisting our efforts. Whatever you think you can do or believe you can do, begin it. Action has magic, grace, and power in it. Shame. Some of you are thinking, if it were that easy to take an action, I wouldn't be reading this book. Those of us who get bogged down by fear before action are usually being sabotaged by an older enemy, shame. Shame is a controlling device. Shaming someone is an attempt to prevent the person from behaving in a way that embarrasses us. Yeah, that's a great description. That's something I experienced a lot as a child. I experienced a lot of shaming from a parent who was embarrassed by just like basic silly child behavior and just couldn't have it. So don't do that, parents. It's not good for your kids. Making a piece of art may feel a lot like telling a family's secrets. Secret telling, by its very nature, involves shame and fear. It asks the question, what will they think of me once they know this? This is a frightening question, particularly if we have ever been made to feel ashamed for our curiosities and explorations, social, sexual, spiritual. How dare you? Angry adults often rage at an innocent child who has stumbled onto a family's secret. How dare you open your mother's jewelry box? How dare you open your father's desk drawer? How dare you open the bedroom door? How dare you go down into the cellar, up into the attic, into some dark place where we hide those things we don't want you to know? The act of making art exposes a society to itself. Art brings things to light. It illuminates us. It sheds light on our lingering darkness. It casts a beam into the heart of our own darkness and says, see? When people do not want to see something, they get mad at the one who shows them. They kill the messenger. A child from an alcoholic home gets into trouble scholastically or sexually. The family is flagged as being troubled. The child is made to feel shame for bringing shame to the family. But did the child bring shame? No. The child brought shameful things to light. The family shame predated and caused the child's distress. What will the neighbors think is a shaming device aimed at continuing a conspiracy of illness. Yeah, I bet I'm not the only person who understands how that feels. Art opens the closets, airs out the cellars and attics. It brings healing. But before a wound can heal, it must be seen, and this act of exposing the wound to air and light, the artist's act, is often reacted to with shaming. Bad reviews are a prime source of shame for many artists. The truth is, many reviews do aim at creating shame in an artist. Shame on you! How dare you make that rotten piece of art? For the artist who endured childhood shaming, over any form of neediness, any type of exploration, any expectation, shame may kick in even without the aid of a shame-provoking review. If a child has ever been made to feel foolish for believing himself or herself talented, the act of actually finishing a piece of art will be fraught with internal shaming. Yeah, I get this. I definitely experienced this. Yeah, there's a feeling of fear around sort of shining bright and being talented because someone will have to come along and just cut you back down to size. You know, that tall poppy syndrome. Oh, yeah. Many artists begin a piece of work, get well along in it, and then find as they near completion that the work seems mysteriously drained of merit. It's no longer worth the trouble. To therapists, this surge of sudden disinterest is a routine coping device employed to deny pain and ward off vulnerability. Well, okay, that's pretty direct hit. All right. Adults who grew up in dysfunctional homes learn to use this coping device very well. They call it detachment, but it is actually a numbing out. He forgot my birthday. Oh well, no big deal. A lifetime of this kind of experience, in which needs for recognition are routinely dishonored, teaches a young child that putting anything out for attention is a dangerous act. Dragging home the invisible bone is how one recovering artist characterized her vain search for an achievement big enough to gain approval in her family of origin. No matter how big a deal it was, they never seemed to take much notice. They always found something wrong with it. All A's and one B, and that B got the attention. It is only natural that a young artist try to flag parental attention by way of accomplishments, positive or negative. Faced with indifference or rage, such youngsters soon learn that no bone would really meet with parental approval. Yeah, I think I figured this out around like mid-high school. I think I realized that I was never going to get the loving, excited reaction from my parents that I was seeking and that I saw other kids getting from their parents. So I knew it was possible. But I realized around then that it was just like not forthcoming from my parents. So yeah, I think I started engaging in a lot of that detachment at that point. Yeah. Often we are wrongly shamed as creatives. From this shaming, we learn that we are wrong to create. Once we learn this lesson, we forget it instantly. Buried under it doesn't matter. The shame lives on, waiting to attach itself to our new efforts. This very act of attempting to make art creates shame. This is why many a great student film is never sent off to festivals where it can be seen. Why good novels are destroyed or live in desk drawers. This is why plays do not get sent out, why talented actors don't audition. This is why artists may feel shame at admitting their dreams. Shame is retriggered in us as adults because our internal artist is always our creative child. Because of this, making a piece of art may cause us to feel shame. Yeah. Just out of frame here, I'm looking at an oil pastel canvas that is about half finished, and every time I look at it, I feel a mixture of pride that I started a new project that is not my primary creative act, and also just like this exhausting feeling of just like, why bother? You're not going to make any money off of that. What's the point? So, yeah, I get where they're coming from here. We don't make art with its eventual criticism foremost in mind, but criticism that asks a question like, how could you, can make an artist feel like a shamed child. A well-meaning friend who constructively criticizes a beginning writer may very well end that writer. Let me be clear, not all criticism is shaming. In fact, even the most severe criticism, when it fairly hits the mark, is apt to be greeted by an internal aha if it shows the artist a new and valid path for work. The criticism that damages is that which disparages, dismisses, ridicules, or condemns. It is frequently vicious but vague and difficult to refute. This is the criticism that damages. I think this has a lot in common with the work that Brené Brown does around shame and how shame is really antithetical to connection, and how shaming someone really destroys an opportunity to make a goal together for the future. Shamed by such criticism, an artist may become blocked or stop sending work out into the world. A perfectionist friend, teacher, or critic, like a perfectionist parent who nitpicks at missing commas, can dampen the ardor of a young artist who is just learning to let it rip. Because of this, as artists, we must learn to be very self-protective. Does this mean no criticism? No. It means learning where and when to seek out right criticism. As artists, we must learn when criticism is appropriate and from whom. Yes. Not only the source, but the timing is very important here. A first draft is seldom appropriately shown to any but the most gentle and discerning eye. It often takes another artist to see the embryonic work that is trying to sprout. The inexperienced or harsh critical eye, instead of nurturing the shoot of art into being, may shoot it down instead. It's for this very reason that in my day job as a cafe manager, I personally train new hires on latte art, and I keep that task just for myself because I know that it is a really vulnerable thing. You know, you're doing this in front of customers, and it's a very specific set of skills to, I guess, quote Liam Neeson by accident. And that all takes time to come together, and it requires a lot of encouragement because it's a really hard thing to learn. And so I was just thinking about that a lot as I was reading through this, how, you know, those kids I'm teaching, they really need to be encouraged because they may just see a mess of bubbly foam, but as their teacher, I can see where there's potential and where they are doing things the right way, even if they can't see it yet. And having somebody encourage you in those early days is really important in building confidence. Continuing on. As artists, we cannot control all the criticism we will receive. We cannot make our professional critics more healthy or more loving or more constructive than they are. But we can learn to comfort our artist child over unfair criticism. We can learn to find friends with whom we can safely vent our pain. We can learn not to deny and stuff our feelings when we have been artistically savaged. Art requires a safe hatchery. Ideally, artists find this first in their family, then in their school, and finally in a community of friends and supporters. The ideal is seldom a reality. As artists, we must learn to create our own safe environments. We must learn to protect our artist child from shame. We do this by diffusing our childhood shamings, getting them on the page, and sharing them with a trusted, non-shaming other. By telling our shame secrets around our art and telling them through our art, we release ourselves and others from darkness. This release is not always welcomed. We must learn that when our art reveals a secret of the human soul, those watching it may try to shame us from making it. It's terrible, they may say, attacking the work when the work itself is actually fine. This can be very confusing. When we are told shame on you and feel it, we must learn to recognize this shame as a recreation of childhood shames. I know that work is good. I thought it was good work. Could I be kidding myself? Maybe that critic is right. Why did I ever even have the nerve to think? And the downward spiral continues. At these times, we must be very firm with ourselves and not pick up the first doubt. We simply cannot allow the first negative thinking to take hold. Taking in the first doubt is like picking up the first drink for an alcoholic. Once in our system, the doubt will take on another doubt and another. Doubting thoughts can be stopped, but it takes vigilance to do it. Maybe that critic was right. And boom, we must go into action. You are a good artist, a brave artist. You are doing well. It's good that you did the work. When God's Will, the romantic film comedy I directed, debuted in Washington, D.C., it was a homecoming for me. My earliest journalism work had been for the Washington Post. I was hoping for a hometown girl makes good reception, but in the reviews printed prior to the opening, I did not get it. The Post sent a young woman who watched an entire movie about theater people and then wrote that it was about movie people. She added that most of my dialogue had been stolen from Casablanca. I wondered what movie she had seen, not the one I made. My movie had 40-odd theater jokes and a one-line joke about Casablanca. Those were the facts, but they didn't do me any good. I think that's a really important thing to remember, is that, like, if somebody decides to be wrong in an emphatic way, it's not always worth trying to prove them right, because sometimes it's just going to waste your time and exhaust you. I was mortified, shamed, ready to almost die. Because the antidote for shame is self-love and self-praise, this is what I did. I went for a walk through Rock Creek Park. I prayed. I made a list for myself of past compliments and good reviews. I did not tell myself it doesn't matter, but I did tell my artist self, you will heal. And I showed up for my opening. It was a lot more successful than my reviews. It's almost like the people who are willing to show up in person matter more. 3 months later, my film was chosen for a prestigious European festival. They offered to fly me over, to pay my expenses, to showcase my film. I hesitated. The Washington shaming had done its slow and poisonous work. I was afraid to go. But I knew better than to not go. My years in artistic recovery had taught me to just show up. When I did, my film sold at a great price and won a headline in Variety. I share the headline because the irony of it was not lost on me. God's will hit in Munich, it read. It is God's will for us to be creative. Dealing with criticism. It is important to be able to sort useful criticism from the other kind. Often we need to do the sorting out for ourselves without the benefit of a public vindication. As artists, we are far more able to do this sorting than people might suspect. Pointed criticism, if accurate, often gives the artist an inner sense of relief. Aha! So that's what was wrong with it. Useful criticism ultimately leaves us with one more puzzle piece for our work. Useless criticism, on the other hand, leaves us with a feeling of being bludgeoned. As a rule, it is withering and shaming in tone, ambiguous in content, personal, inaccurate, or blanket in its condemnations. There is nothing to be gleaned from irresponsible criticism. You are dealing with an inner child. Artistic child abuse creates rebellion, creates block. All that can be done with abusive criticism is to heal from it. There are certain rules of the road useful in dealing with any form of criticism. Got 9 rules. Let's read them out. 1. Receive the criticism all the way through and get it over with. 2. Jot down notes to yourself on what concepts or phrases bother you. 3. Jot down notes on what concepts or phrases seem useful. 4. Do something very nurturing for yourself. Read an old good review or recall a compliment. 5. Remember that even if you have made a truly rotten... Oh boy. Mike's on the loose. Remember that even if you have made a truly rotten piece of art, it may be a necessary stepping stone to your next work. Art matures spasmodically and requires ugly duckling growth stages. Look at the criticism again. Does it remind you of any criticism from your past, particularly shaming childhood criticism? Acknowledge to yourself that the current criticism is triggering grief over a long-standing wound. How often is that the case? How often are we just reacting from something in the past? Ugh. 7. Write a letter to the critic, not to be mailed, most probably. Defend your work and acknowledge what was helpful, if anything, in the criticism proffered. 8. Get back on the horse. Make an immediate commitment to do something creative. 9. Do it. Creativity is the only cure for criticism. Detective work and exercise. Many blocked people are actually very powerful and creative personalities who have been made to feel guilty about their own strengths and gifts. Without being acknowledged, they are often used as batteries by their families and friends, who feel free to both use their creative energies and disparage them. When these blocked artists strive to break free of their dysfunctional systems, they are often urged to be sensible when such advice is not appropriate for them. Made to feel guilty for their talents, they often hide their own light under a bushel for fear of hurting others. Instead, they hurt themselves. A little sleuth work is in order to restore the persons we have abandoned, ourselves. When you complete the following phrases, you may feel strong emotion as you retrieve memories and misplaced fragments of yourself. Allow yourself to free associate for a sentence or so with each phrase. And we've got here 20 phrases. And I'm just going to go right through it. Here we go. 1. My favorite childhood toy was... I really liked Legos when I was very young. Big Lego girl. And when I was older enough for it, I was way into Scrabble, if games count as childhood toys. 2. My favorite childhood game was, question answered. My favorite childhood game was Scrabble. I was pretty verbal, pretty young, so that was something that we started playing together as a family when I was, maybe in first grade, I want to say. 3. The best movie I ever saw as a kid was... I struggled with movies when I was a child because I didn't know, nor did anyone else, that I was on the spectrum, so I found the experience of a movie theater pretty overstimulating. So I don't really have a lot of good memories as far as movies go. And I also had a really hard time with, a lot of the Disney movies growing up featured, the death of a parent, and I was really codependent with my parents. So even seeing that in a cartoon format was incredibly stressful for me. So the best movie I ever saw as a kid, I guess, was no movie. Didn't really enjoy movies until I gained some more emotional regulation later on. 4. I don't do it much, but I enjoy... I really enjoy the oil pastels that I've picked up recently. It's something that I did a lot as a kid, and I really enjoy doing something that is not verbal because so much of my life involves words, either spoken word in terms of explaining things at work to my staff, or written word as far as my Substack goes. So doing something with a different part of my brain feels really good, even though I don't always think to do it. 5, if I could lighten up a little, I would let myself have people over more often, trusting that they're not going to judge my space. I think that's something that I picked up from my mom, and I think I'm probably not the only person to do that who grew up in the 80s. But yeah, I think if I could chill out about having to present myself in a certain way, I would have people over more often. 6, if it weren't too late, I would, I think I would, I would learn another language with the kind of ease that a younger brain picks it up. So if I could have my, child brain back that is more spongy in terms of picking up languages, I would love to learn Spanish in a more fluent way because it's something that I find really useful in my day job. 7, my favorite musical instrument. I guess I would have to say flute because I have a master's degree in performing on the flute, so I know it really well. Um, and but the instrument that I always wished I could play and really love the sound of is the cello. 8, the amount of money I spend on treating myself to entertainment each month is not a lot. Like I mentioned, I find movie theaters pretty overstimulating, so I don't find myself seeking that out. But yeah, I think it's basically what I spend on like streaming services at home is kind of my entertainment. And like I'll buy myself books as well, but yeah, wow, I really need to live it up more. Goodness. 9, if I weren't so stingy with my artist, I'd buy her um really big canvases for my oils. I think that would be fun to work on like a really big format. The biggest I have right now is like an 18 by 20 inch that I'm working on. But I would love to just have one of those unreasonably large, sort of wall-sized canvases. I think those are just so cool. 10, taking time out for myself is complicated. It's something that I'm realizing I really need just because of the certain disabilities that I have. I need rest just to maintain. But it's something that I was also really shamed about growing up because nobody realized I had those disabilities. So had I grown up with proper understanding for what I'm working with body wise, I don't think it would be a big deal. But um, as it stands, yeah, it's something that I've struggled with is accepting that it's okay for me to just take some time for myself and nobody's gonna come crashing into the room demanding that I get up and do some work. 11, I am afraid that if I start dreaming, I will set myself up for disappointment and heartbreak. Um, yeah, I have experienced so much loss in my life that the idea of setting myself up for voluntary loss seems just almost laughable at this point. 12, I secretly enjoy reading. Um, I really love the super formulaic Dan Brown books um, because they're really short chapters. I can kind of stop whenever and not have to finish the chapter. I can kind of just pick it up and put it down, and I kind of know what's going to happen even though the setting is always different. So it's a nice bit of predictability in an unpredictable world. 13. If I had had a perfect childhood, I'd have grown up to be. I think I probably would have just grown up to be. I think I would have had kids. I think if I had had a better experience in my own childhood, that's something that I would have wanted to recreate for others. But, um, that's something that I thought about a lot for a long time, and I decided that I didn't want to take the risk because My mother certainly intended to be a good mother, and I don't think she did a very good job, even though she tried really hard. So I couldn't guarantee that I wouldn't make the same mistakes. 14. If it didn't sound so crazy, I'd write or make, uh, I think I might write a long form memoir, which is not really something I have the time to do right now, but it's something that if I was able to take some time off of work and really focus in longer chunks, I think I would really enjoy doing that. 15. My parents think artists are, um, I think they have respect for artists. They always supported my dream to go to music school, even if I don't think they quite understood it. I don't, I'm not sure they really understood what the future was financially, but they also didn't seem like they were that concerned with helping out should it not work out. So it was sort of this weird combination of you've got this and also we're not going to help you. So I think they think artists are somebody else's problem. 16. My God thinks artists are wonderful, necessary creatures. Absolutely necessary creatures. 17. What makes me feel weird about this recovery is just how much it's reminding me of all my other recovery experiences and how much it's making clear to me how recovery comes in a lot of different flavors, but it's all kind of made out of the same stuff. And we all come here for sort of the same reason. 18. Learning to trust myself is probably something I should get around to doing. I am about to turn 38, and I feel like it's time to just get on board with myself and realize that if I've made it this far, I probably know a few things, so I might as well trust myself. 19. My most cheer me up music is, I really, I have a pretty eclectic range, but I really love Taylor Swift. I know it's controversial, but I don't care. I think it's just interesting that she's been putting stuff out for such a long time and has trusted herself to evolve. And she's a poet at the end of the day. She's a poet who happens to sing her songs. 20. My favorite way to dress is comfortably and functionally. I don't want to notice the clothing I have on. I don't want to have to pull or tug or adjust. I don't want to feel like I'm going to have something fall out that I don't want to show people. I just want to think about what I'm doing and not what's on my body. So what I'm wearing right now, sort of big sweatshirt headband, that's a pretty good example of what I'm doing. All right, moving on to the next section, growth. Growth is an erratic forward movement. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Remember that and be very gentle with yourself. A creative recovery is a healing process. You are capable of great things on Tuesday, but on Wednesday you may slide backward. This is normal. Growth occurs in spurts. You will lie dormant sometimes. Do not be discouraged. Think of it as resting. Very often, a week of insights will be followed by a week of sluggishness. The morning pages will seem pointless. They are not. What you are learning to do, writing them even when you are tired and they seem dull, is to rest on the page. This is very important. Marathon runners suggest you log 10 slow miles for every fast one. The same holds true for creativity. In this sense, easy does it is actually a modus operandi. It means easy accomplishes it. If you will hew to a practice of writing 3 pages every morning and doing one kind thing for yourself every day, you will begin to notice a slight lightness of heart. Practice being kind to yourself in small, concrete ways. Look at your refrigerator. Are you feeding yourself nicely? Do you have socks? An extra set of sheets? What about a new houseplant? A thermos for the long drive to work? Allow yourself to pitch out some of your old ragged clothes. You don't have to keep everything. The expression, God helps those who help themselves, may take on a new and very different meaning. Where in the past it translated, God helps only those who earn help, it will now come to signify the amazing number of small free gifts the Creator showers on those who are helping themselves to a little bounty. If you do one nice thing a day for yourself, God will do two more. Be alert for support and encouragement from unexpected quarters. Be open to receiving gifts from odd channels, free tickets, a free trip, an offer to buy you dinner, a new to you old couch. Practice saying yes to such help. I feel like this sort of happened to me just today. I was struggling to get the motivation to make this video that you're watching right now, and I was torn because I really wanted to do it, but I didn't want to actually sit down and do it. I just wanted to have done it. And so instead, I ordered some groceries because I realized that I had nothing in the fridge, and I occupied myself with some boring YouTube just to relax until the food came. And then, wouldn't you know it, as soon as I had a fridge full of food and I got that task off my plate and I felt a little more restored, I magically had the motivation to sit down and make this video. Who knew? The scientifically inclined among you might want to make a good, thorough list of clothes you wish you had. Very often, the items on the list come into your possession at disconcerting speed. Just try it. Experiment. More than anything else, experiment with solitude. You will need to make a commitment to quiet time. Try to acquire the habit of checking in with yourself. Several times a day, just take a beat and ask yourself how you are feeling. Listen to your answer. Respond kindly. If you are doing something very hard, promise yourself a break and a treat afterward. Yes, I am asking you to baby yourself. We believe that to be artists, we must be tough, critical, and intellectually chilly. Leave that to the critics. As a creative being, you'll be more productive when coaxed than when bullied. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And that's another thing I do in my own training at work, and especially on that really difficult latte art. It doesn't help anybody to point out what they're doing wrong or what's going badly. Like, that's just kind of all beside the point. The point is to focus on what's going well and feed that until it gets bigger. Great. So, now we have our weekly assignment of 10 tasks. I'm going to read those out, and then I'm going to go back and talk about the tasks I did last week and just how those went. So here's the tasks for week 3. 1. Describe your childhood room. If you wish, you may sketch this room. What was your favorite thing about it? What's your favorite thing about your room right now? Nothing? Well, get something you like in there. Maybe something from that old childhood room. 2. Describe 5 traits you like in yourself as a child. 3. List 5 childhood accomplishments and a treat. List 5 favorite childhood foods. 4. Habits. Take a look at your habits. Many of them may interfere with your self-nurturing and cause shame. Some of the oddest things are self-destructive. Do you have a habit of watching TV you don't like? Do you have a habit of hanging out with a really boring friend and just killing time? Some rotten habits are obvious, overt. Drinking too much, smoking, eating instead of writing. List 3 obvious rotten habits. What's the payoff in continuing them? Some rotten habits are more subtle. No time to exercise, little time to pray, always helping others, not getting any self-nurturing. List 3 of your subtle foes. What use do these forms of sabotage have? Be specific. Make a list of friends who nurture you. That's nurture, not enable. There is a big difference between being helped and being treated as though we are helpless. List 3 nurturing friends. Which of their traits particularly serve you well? 6. Call a friend who treats you like you are a really good and bright person who can accomplish things. Part of your recovery is reaching out for support. This support will be critical as you undertake new risks. 7. Inner compass. Each of us has an inner compass. This is an instinct that points us toward health. It warns us when we are on dangerous ground, and it tells us when something is safe and good for us. Morning pages are one way to contact it. So are some other artist brain activities: painting, driving, walking, scrubbing, running. This week, take an hour to follow your inner compass by doing an artist brain activity and listening to what insights bubble up. 8. List 5 people you admire. Now, list 5 people you secretly admire. What traits do these people have that you can cultivate further in yourself? List 5 people you wish you had met who are dead. Now list 5 people who are dead whom you'd like to hang out with for a while in eternity. What traits do you find in these people that you can look for in your friends? 10. Compare the two sets of lists. Take a look at what you really like and really admire, and a look at what you think you should like and admire. Your shoulds might tell you to admire Edison, while your heart belongs to Houdini. Go with the Houdini side of you for a while. Interesting. So much. I feel like there's so much more about identity in this week than there was in last week. It's fascinating. Speaking of which, I'm going to go back and just talk a little bit about what tasks I ended up doing in week 2. So one of the tasks I chose was to list where my time went. And I realized that I'm actually not doing as badly as I thought, because most of the time I'm spending my time doing something that I want to do. The only thing I do in my life that I really feel like is a should versus a want is my day job. And even that, I have gotten to a point in my career where I'm doing something I enjoy doing. So it's really encouraging to see that, like, I've actually set my life up in a really good way, and it's a life that I enjoy. So I also, it tasked me with listing 20 things I enjoy doing, and that made me realize how much I have been focusing on work and my career in the last few years, because I realized that most of my enjoyment I've been finding through accomplishment at work and not through enjoyable activities at home or with friends or out in the world. So that was pretty eye-opening, and it's something that I think I'm going to have to work on. Another task kind of in a similar vein, it tasked me with drawing a circle, dividing it into 6 pieces: spirituality, exercise, play, work, friends, and romance, and just checking in to see how the balance was between all 6 sections in my life. And I realized that I'm really beefy on spirituality, exercise, and work, all of this self-improvement stuff. But friends, play, and romance were really lacking. And those are just things I just haven't given myself permission to engage with as much, because I've been just so scared of running out of money that I have been really focused on my career. And that ended up paying off. I'm not worried about money anymore, knock on wood, but I'm realizing now that I have these other deficits that I need to account for. And another thing that I thought was interesting was a task was to make a list of 10 small changes I would like to make. And a lot of them ended up being just small things around the house. I just wanted to soften up my home and make it a little more of an enjoyable place to experience, as opposed to just a place where I keep my stuff. So that was pretty useful to learn. So that is a recap of week 2 and an exploration of week 3 in The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Thank you so much for sitting with me and exploring that, and for listening to me editorialize wildly, as I love to do. So I hope that you join next time for another edition. Next time we will be exploring week 4, recovering a sense of integrity. So I'll see you then. Thanks so much for joining.